I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network as we review the tax records that were produced and made public by the House Ways and Means Committee. We're starting to see more lies being told by Donald Trump. And specifically, one of the claims that Donald Trump had been making was that he was donating his presidential salary to various governmental departments. And at least for 2022, we can say conclusively that Donald Trump was lying and not donating his presidential salary to any government agencies at all or giving any money to charity at all in 2020. Because when we look at the returns that were made public by the House Ways and Means Committee, and we go to the section on gifts to charity, and we look at it, it says gifts by cash or check. If you made any gift of $250 or more, see instructions and to disclose it. And Donald Trump puts a big donut hole as $0, gave no money to charity at all during that time period. And this was just an utter and complete lie that was being perpetrated by Donald Trump and by those in the administration, and the media just went along with it. I mean, look, here is a post from Kayleigh McEnany. This is from March 3rd of 2020, and she writes, President real Donald Trump made a commitment to donate his salary while in office. Honoring that promise and to further protect the American people, he is donating his 2019 Q4 salary to HHS Gov, United States Department of Health and Human Services, to support the efforts being undertaken to confront, contain, and combat the coronavirus. And then you see there's a check for $100,000, but that is actually not reflected anywhere on Donald Trump's 2020 tax returns at all. Here, let me just play for you the press conference, because Donald Trump and Kayleigh McEnany, they'd all make a big point about holding press conferences and announcing that Donald Trump was donating all this money to charity. No, we now have the returns. We know that he gave no money to charity. But here, play the clip of Kayleigh McEnany holding the check up and announcing that Donald Trump donates his salary to charity and he would be donating it to HHS. Play the clip.
Before getting started, I wanted to note that the president, as you all are well aware, donates his salary to various initiatives and parts across the federal government. In this quarter, he will be donating his salary to HHS, Health and Human Services, to develop new therapies for treating and preventing COVID-19 so that we can safely reopen. Here is the check amounted to $100,000 that will go directly from President Trump and his paycheck that he does not take, but rather donates it to various noble initiatives, including in honor of COVID this time, and those who have passed and the studies underway. He'll be donating it to HHS. And with that, I will take questions from you all.
Just for a matter of completeness, I mean, he did make charitable donations in the previous years, but no charitable donations in 2020. And that was the year that they were bragging as well about these charitable donations. So lots of false statements, lots of misrepresentation that we're seeing, lots of criminality coming out of this. And look, this is why there was supposed to be a mandatory audit function of United States presidents and vice presidents. It was mandatory, required by law, but under Steve Mnuchin and the Treasury Department, they were not enforcing, they were keeping dormant the mandatory audit program that could have discovered these things, that could have raised a lot of red flags. And for example, Donald Trump claiming that in as of 2013, he stopped having bank accounts with China, or he opened up a bank account in 2013. By 2015, stopped having bank accounts with China. No, we know from his tax returns that from 2015 through 2017, in addition to Ireland and the United Kingdom, Donald Trump not only had a bank account in China, but he was paying more taxes to the Chinese government than he was paying to the United States government, by far. I mean, in the year that he was paying the Chinese government about $200,000 in taxes, he was paying the United States government, I think this was in 2017, $750 in taxes. And Donald Trump, who likes to brag and boast about being a great business person, claims that he lost tens of millions of dollars essentially in all of these years. And when you add up the total taxes that Donald Trump paid from 2015 through 2020, you add them all up and you factor in that he received a $5 million refund in 2020, Donald Trump paid no taxes during that year. I mean, there were some years he paid $750. He got the refund in 2020. In other years, he paid less than 4% of his purported income in taxes. So one year was like close to $999,000, where there was $25 million of income. But when you factor in the refund in 2020, Donald Trump during those years actually received $3 million from the federal government, paying no taxes at all, which is why what we talk about here on the MeidasTouch Network is that let's call it what it is. I mean, this is Donald Trump stealing from Americans. This is Donald Trump stealing from hardworking Americans, working class Americans, middle class Americans, Americans who pay their taxes. And Donald Trump was manipulating 400, 500 pass-through entities. He was manipulating all of these purported losses, and not just manipulating in a way that unfortunately is legal. I mean, unfortunately, you go look at the 2017 tax plan that was passed by Republicans and signed into law. There are lots of deductions, and lots of very wealthy people are taking out deductions and not paying the taxes that they should be paying. But more to the point here, what Donald Trump was doing was not just taking advantage of a tax system that benefits the uber wealthy. What Donald Trump was doing was just making up numbers, making up valuations that far exceeded appraisals, just assigning numbers to it that were grossly inflated. Again, this is what New York Attorney General Letitia James filed a civil fraud lawsuit about. But when we bring it into the context of Donald Trump's federal tax returns, when Donald Trump would overinflate the assets by multiples of what the appraised value is, that would allow him to take these massive deductions that he shouldn't be permitted to take. And so, just for example, in a one of these transactions in 1995, Donald Trump purchased a 212-acre property in Westchester. He purchased it purportedly for about $7.5 million. One of the vehicles he used for purchasing it is something called Seven Springs LLC. And then what he did with this property was engaged in a conservation easement deal, but whereas the New York state government appraised the property value somewhere in the range of $20 million, Donald Trump took a deduction regarding that same conservation easement of close to $60 million from a piece of land that he purchased for about $7.5 million in 1995. That's just one example, and there's a myriad of examples. And again, as you go through this tax returns, you see how Donald Trump's kids seem to be paid by loans to get around gift taxes. You go through this and you see lots and lots of criminality here. But going back to where we started with the video, again, he's lying about his charitable work. He's lying about his charitable donations. He's lying about literally every single thing, and it's right there. And so the question to Kayleigh McEnany is, was she aware of this? Did she know this to be the case? Was she aware this was taking place? I remember. So we did a interview before with Michael Cohen. You may remember this. And Michael Cohen said when he was representing Trump, before Michael Cohen went to the good side, when he was representing Donald Trump, he had asked Donald Trump, he said, show me that we're under audit so that I could just show the press, look, we really are under audit, and this is why we can't produce our tax returns. And Donald Trump would tell Michael Cohen at that time, just say we're under audit, just say, which Michael Cohen then realized meant, okay, we're really not under audit. And that's what we've learned too. Donald Trump was not under audit, all completely made up. All he does is lie, lie, lie. And then you wonder how people like George Santos, the MAGA extremist fraud, is embraced by the Republican Party, because that's all they do. All they do is lie about every single thing. And George Santos just reflects another version of the grift. George Santos wasn't a trust fund kid, so his lies couldn't be the same type of lies that are Trump lies. But you think about it, they're very, very, very similar people here, and that's just who the MAGA Republicans are. So you take aside for a second the fact that large media networks like to say, oh, here's what Democrats are, here's what Republicans are, conservative, liberal. Stop it with the labels. Stop with the labels. These MAGA Republicans, you just want to look at what their conduct is. It's just fraud. They're just liars. They're just criminals. They're extremists. And they're taking advantage of working class Americans, middle class Americans, hardworking Americans, Americans who pay their taxes, Americans who do the right thing. They are just looting and pillaging, and then they use these divisive issues to try to distract Americans, and they start attacking teachers, and they start focusing on Potato Head and green M&Ms and making people angry about pronouns, and all distraction while they pick your pocket. That's what they're doing. It's that simple, folks. Well, I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your incredible support. Hit subscribe right now. And in addition, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Check us out there. We have lots of exclusive content you can only get at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. But most importantly, help grow this independent media platform. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.